This morning, we all come to the cross. For some, it is a long journey, and for others, they need only look around their lives and see themselves at the foot of the cross, or even up on the cross. This morning, we tell God's story that is our story. We tell it on land that is the traditional home of many indigenous peoples, including the Wendat, the Anishinaabeg Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Mississaugas of Scugog. Good Friday has a layered meaning when we consider our past relationships with our indigenous siblings and our desire to be reconciled, to live justly, respectfully, lovingly. And we come to the cross with the LGBTQ plus community, those who identify in binary and non-binary terms of reference, those who expand our understanding of gender and visual assumptions about people. The cross has a special resonance when we consider the pain, the lost witness, the injustice that has marginalized those that God loves and for whom Christ comes to the cross. We are all called to the cross together, each of us bringing our experience, looking for our own answers, and being not just witnesses to, but participants in this story and in God's love. They went to a place called Gethsemane, and Jesus said to his disciples, "Sit here while I pray." And he took with him Peter and James and John and began to be distressed and agitated. And he said to them, I am deeply grieved, even to death. Remain here and keep awake. And then going a little further, he threw himself on the ground and prayed that, if it were possible, the hour might pass from him. He said, Abba, Father, for you all things are possible. Remove this cup from me. Yet not what I want, but what you want. He came and he found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, Simon, are you asleep? Could you not keep awake 1 hour? Keep awake and pray that you may not come into the time of trial. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. And again he went away and prayed, saying the same words. And once more he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were very heavy, and they did not know what to say to him. He came a third time and said, Are you still sleeping and still taking your rest? Enough! Enough, the hour has come. The Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up. Let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand. And immediately while he was speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived, and with him there was a crowd with swords and clubs from the chief priests, the scribes, and the elders. Now the betrayer had given them a sign, saying, The one that I will kiss is the man. Arrest him. Lead him away under guard. So when he came, he went up to Jesus at once and said, Rabbi, and kissed him. And then they laid hands on Jesus and arrested him. But one of those who stood near drew his sword and struck the slave of the high priest, cutting off his ear. And Jesus said to them, Have you come out with swords and clubs to arrest me as though I were a bandit? Day after day I was with you in the temple teaching, and you did not arrest me. But let the scriptures be fulfilled. And all of them deserted him and fled. Then they took Jesus to the high priest, and all the chief priests, the elders, and scribes were assembled. Peter had followed him at a distance, right into the courtyard of the high priest, and he was sitting with the guards, warming himself at the fire. Now the chief priests and the whole council were looking for testimony against Jesus to put him to death, but they found none. For many gave false testimony against him, and their testimony did not agree. Some stood up and gave false testimony against him, saying, We heard him say, I will destroy the temple that is made with hands, and in 3 days I will build another, not made with hands. But even on this point their testimony did not agree. And then the high priest stood up before them, and he asked Jesus, Have you no answer? What is it that they testify against you? But Jesus was silent and did not answer. Again the high priest asked him, "Are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One?" And Jesus said, "I am. And you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of the power and coming with the clouds of heaven." And then the high priest tore his clothes and said, "Why do we still need witnesses? You've heard his blasphemy. What is your decision?" And all of them condemned him as deserving death. And some began to spit on him, to blindfold him, and to strike him, saying, "Prophesy!" The guards took him over, and they beat him. While Peter was below in the courtyard, one of the servant girls of the high priest came by, and when she saw Peter warming himself, she stared at him and said, "You also were with Jesus, the man from Nazareth." But Peter denied it, saying, "I do not know or understand what you're talking about." And then he went out into the forecourt, and then the cock crowed. And the servant girl, on seeing him, began to say to the bystanders, "This man is one of them." But again he denied it. And then after a little while the bystanders again said to Peter, "Certainly you're one of them, for you're a Galilean." But he began to curse, and he swore an oath, "I do not know this man that you're talking about." And at that moment the cock crowed for the second time. And then Peter remembered that Jesus had said to him, "Before the cock crows twice, you will deny me 3 times." And he broke down and he wept. As soon as it was morning, the chief priests held a consultation with the elders and the scribes and the whole council. And they bound Jesus, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate. And Pilate asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" He answered him, "You say so." And then the chief priest accused him of many things. And Pilate asked him again, "Have you no answer? See how many charges they bring against you." But Jesus made no further reply, so that Pilate was amazed. Now at the festival, Pilate used to release a prisoner for them, anyone for whom they asked. And now a man called Barabbas was in prison with the rebels who had committed murder during the insurrection. So the crowd came and began to ask Pilate to do for them according to his custom. And so he answered them, "Do you want me to release for you the king of the Jews?" For he realized that it was out of jealousy that the chief priests had handed him over. But the chief priests stirred up the crowd to have them release Barabbas for them instead. And Pilate spoke to them again. "Then what do you wish me to do with that man you call the king of the Jews?" And they shouted back, "Crucify him!" Pilate asked them, "What evil has he done?" But they shouted all the more, "Crucify him!" And so Pilate, wishing to satisfy the crowd, released Barabbas for them. And after flogging Jesus, he handed him over to be crucified.
My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from saving me? I am in pain. Why don't you hear my cries? Why don't you answer? I'm scared and anxious. I cannot rest. I'm so worn out. You are my creator. Do not be far from me. Trouble is near, and there is no one to help me. I feel surrounded with no way out. The fear is withering me. I lay in the dust of death. God, please help me. Don't be far from me. You are my strength. Come quickly. Deliver me. Hear my cry for help. Rescue me. Save me. I cannot be alive without you.
The Crucifixion. From God's Trombones. 7 African American sermons in verse in 1927. Jesus, my gentle Jesus, walking in the dark of the Garden of Gethsemane, saying to his 3 disciples, "Sorrow is in my soul. Even unto death, tarry ye here a little while, and watch with me." Jesus, my burden Jesus, praying in the dark of the Garden of Gethsemane, saying, "Father, oh Father, this bitter cup,
let it pass from me. Jesus, my sorrowing Jesus, the sweat like drops of blood upon his brow, talking with his Father while the 3 disciples slept, saying, Father, oh Father, not as I will, not as I will, but let thy will be done. Oh, look at black-hearted Judas, sneaking through the dark of the garden, leading his crucifying mob. Oh God, strike him down. Why don't you strike him down before he plants his traitor's kiss upon my Jesus' cheek? And they take my blameless Jesus, and they drag him to the governor, to the mighty Roman governor, great Pilate seated in his hall. Great Pilate on his judgment seat said, in this man I find no fault. I find no fault in him. And Pilate washed his hands. But they cried out, saying, crucify him. Crucify him. Crucify him. His blood be on our heads. And they beat my loving Jesus. They spit on my precious Jesus. They dressed him up in a purple robe. They put on a crown of thorns upon his head, and they pressed it down. They pressed it down. And they mocked my sweet King Jesus. Up Golgotha's rugged road, I see my Jesus go. I see him sink beneath the load. I see my drooping Jesus sink. And they laid hold on Simon, black Simon, yes, black Simon. And they put the cross on Simon, and Simon bore the cross. On Calvary, they crucified my Jesus. They nailed him to the cruel tree. And the hammer rang through Jerusalem's streets. The hammer rang through Jerusalem's streets. Jesus, my lamb-like Jesus, shivering as the nails go through his hand. Jesus, my lamb-like Jesus, shivering as the nails go through his feet. And Jesus, my darling Jesus, groaning as the Roman spear plunged in his side. Jesus, my darling Jesus, groaning as the blood came spurting from his wound. Oh, look how they done my Jesus. Mary, weeping Mary, sees her poor little Jesus on the cross. Mary, weeping Mary, sees her sweet baby Jesus on the cruel cross hanging between 2 thieves. And Jesus, my lonesome Jesus, called out once more to his Father, saying, my God, why have you forsaken me? And he dropped his head and died. And the veil of the temple was split in 2, and the midday sun refused to shine. And the thunder rumbled, and the lightning wrote an unknown language in the sky. What a day! Lord, what a day when my blessed Jesus died. Oh, I tremble. Yes, I tremble. It causes me to tremble. when I think how Jesus died on the steeps of Calvary, how Jesus died for sinners like you and me. The words are so powerful. The story is so powerful. The truth is so powerful that sometimes we just want to block it off, shut it down, make it less gory, less frightening, less scary, because some of us are doing fine. Thank you very much. It might be nice to hear that Jesus paid the price for my sins. It's been done, right? So I'm okay. Jesus paid, so I'm fine. I can go on with my life the way it is. It's fine just the way it is. I can hear the story. I can come and hear the story, and I can cry. But I can walk away from here knowing that it's been paid. I'm done. It's okay. Jesus paid. That horrible story, but Jesus paid. And if I do that, then this story is nothing, really. It's just a horrible story about horrible people doing a horrible thing to someone who didn't deserve it. I don't know, maybe I can believe that story, but I don't trust it. And it doesn't change my life. And for my friends, my family, those who are close to me and those not as close, but those who struggle, how dare I take this story away from them so that I can be comfortable and not change my life? It's not so bad, really. No. This story tells me about God who suffers and dies. This story tells me about God who is dealt great injustice by the systems of the world. This story tells me about a God who is betrayed, disrespected, attacked, beaten, spat upon by the ones that God loves. If you've ever been truly at the bottom, when you feel like your last breath is at any moment, you need to know that God is there. How dare I take that away from you simply because I want to stay comfortable? When the world has treated you not just unkindly, but unjustly. When you have been abused repeatedly, ignored, refused access to what you need to live, you need to know that God is with you. That God is not the system. That God knows what it's like. How dare I take that story away from you simply because that's not what my life is like. Systems work for me most of the time. I get angry and upset about this. I might have an election go the way I didn't want it to, but the truth is I'm fine. How dare I make this story about staying comfortable when there are people who are bruised and beaten and hurt and dying, and they need to know that God is with them, that God sees them, that God feels what they feel. This isn't about the resurrection to come later. That is a powerful and important story too, and I would never steal that from anybody. But every now and again, I am tempted to steal this story away from those who need it the most, the ones who know what it feels like to be beaten and bruised, unjustly accused, pushed to the edge of pain and suffering. I won't take that story away. Not from you. Not from my siblings. And not away from myself either, because one day I may need to know this story. Not as a thing that I do before Easter comes. I may need to know this story because I may be living on Calvary's Hill. And I need to know that I'm not alone. However you need this story today, however you need to know this truth today, however you need to experience God today, this story is for you. Trust it. Cherish it. Do not deny it to yourself or to anybody else. In the worst of times, we are not alone. God is with us. God has been there. God is there. Thanks be to God.
In you, Lord, I take refuge. Don't let me be put to shame. Deliver me in your righteousness. Hear my cry. Rescue me. Be my refuge, a strong fortress. Save me. You are my rock. Lead me. Guide me. Keep me free from the traps set for me. You are my refuge, my protection. I put my spirit, my soul into your hands. Deliver me. I am so afraid and alone. My mind is consumed with distress. My body and soul is weakened by grief and sorrow. O God, be merciful to me. I am forgotten. I have become broken pottery. But I trust you, God. You are my creator and deliverer. Save me. Shine your light on me. Save me through your love. God, can you hear my cry? I trust in you, Lord. You are my God. You are my refuge. I will find shelter in your presence. You are my safe dwelling place. Hear my cry for mercy, God. I need your help. I trust in your faithfulness, God. I love you, and my hope is in you.
on that day, that Friday, he was made to suffer, inflicted by our transgressions, burdened by our iniquities, tortured by our violence, more than what he could endure. Hatred made real and palpable. Anger and cruelty against the body lashed out on the skin, against all that was true and good and beautiful. A mob lynching of the innocent against the divine Son who just wanted to be one of us, one with us. Cutting down the tree to carve out a cross, grown from a seed, a plant whose life goal was to reach sun and give air to this world. But people of power made it into an instrument and tool to execute a political prisoner. Someone who was deemed a traitor because he sought a world better than our own. One where we sit at the table together, where the sick are healed, their wounds mended, and liberation is pronounced to the imprisoned. To speak against the principalities of this world, resisting their strategies of violence, declaring the day of the Lord. But all these dreams were dashed on hardened hearts. Hearts not able to see God with us, present, breathing the same air, laughing, crying, sleeping, being with, standing beside, needing us as much as we needed him. Except for the few women who followed him to the end. He was abandoned, left to die, until he breathed his last, until he forgave his offenders and hung with thieves, death row inmates, hanging their heads with him, until the clouds darkened, their chests sunken, until the light of the world was extinguished by merciless hands, making the brilliant sky dark, eclipsing, crucifying God, open God, vulnerable God, tender God, who hung there as dead as that tree. And so we come to the cross. We don't know how we got here, except that we do know. What we're not sure about is how we're going to come away from the cross. But we trust. We may not know how, but we know who will take us away from the cross and make Easter real. We are not afraid. We are not alone. You are not alone. Go in peace. And remember that Easter will always follow Good Friday. God bless you. Amen.
I believe in the sun. I believe in the sun. Even when it's not shining. I believe in the sun. I believe.